It's Cougar Sports Saturday.
That's caught! Touchdown! Stayed inside the boundary and gets in for 6.
Cougar Sports Saturday, a presentation of KSL Sports.
Richie right to the rim, driving score! He would not be denied!
BYU Sports Talk by Cougar fans for Cougar fans. Sponsored by Any Hour Services, electrical, plumbing, heating, and air. Your hosts are Mitch Harper and Kyle Ireland. On Utah's legacy home of the Cougars, KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM and 1160 AM.
Cougar Sports Saturday rolls on this 4-hour edition of CSS here on Game Day, coming to you live from Cincinnati, site of number 11 BYU versus the Cincinnati Bearcats. 9-1 Cougs, 7-3 Cincy. Here at historic Nippert Stadium. So much is on the line. And, in fact, Kyle, BYU could potentially clinch a Big 12 championship game appearance today. This is how it would be done. BYU first needs to get a win over Cincy. Obviously, that's got to be step number one. Also, here's scenario A. Losses by Arizona State and Houston. Arizona State plays Colorado tonight at 6 o'clock. Houston is about to kick off against TCU in Houston today. Or, option B, a win over Cincinnati for BYU, plus an Arizona State loss and a Utah win over Kansas State, who they just got underway in Salt Lake City at Rice-Eccles. Utes over K-State, and then BYU punches its ticket to Arlington. Do you think BYU clinches a berth today to Arlington?
I don't, because I don't think Colorado's going to beat ASU. I think it's as simple as that. I just don't think Colorado's a good football team.
Yeah, Arizona State's ranked number 25 in the college football playoff rankings, and playing some good football, ASU is, even without Sam Levitt, who I know Cougar fans love the Levitts, and Levitts love BYU. But
do you like those texts this week, Mitch?
Maybe there's a chance, possibly, Kyle, that maybe there's an upset. Like, Colorado beat Iowa State earlier this year, and we saw BYU go to Folsom and struggle. I mean, I wouldn't rule it out completely. Maybe there's a chance here. Maybe I'm just too optimistic. Maybe I'm just, again, inspired by the shirtless dudes at Arizona, really motivating Arizona, which, by the way, it's really generated some momentum for these Arizona Wildcats. Quickly have added 14 points since these guys in the Arizona student section went shirtless. So, hey, maybe there's some power. Maybe there's some mojo there. Hey, next week, The Rock. Maybe you just need to go shirtless when it's cold. It's at LES. Just be shirtless the whole time and catapult BYU into the Big 12 championship game. But maybe they could clinch that berth tonight. We'll see if everything falls BYU's way to punch that ticket to Arlington 2 weeks from today, now named the Edward Jones Big 12 championship game, no longer the Dr. Pepper championship game. So RIP to Dr. Pepper there, Kyle.
Pour a doctor out for that one, Mitch. I like the ring of the Dr. Pepper a little bit more than the Edward Jones. I'm just going to say that right there. But, yeah, Mitch, it's interesting because BYU's path to Arlington is a clear one. And you just got to handle business. You got to beat Cincinnati, and you've got to beat UCF next week, who, you know, that game is a more winnable game than tonight's game. But tonight, you know, I think that BYU matches up pretty favorably against this Bearcats team. And they're on a losing streak, and I just think that BYU is going to be able to put the hammer down, you know, if they get off to a nice start like they did a week ago. And that was something that BYU was, you know, maybe a little concerned about. It was certainly a concern about from the media and the fan base's standpoint, where BYU is just not getting off to quick starts, whether it be offense, defense, or special teams. And they were able to do so on all three facets a week ago against the Horned Frogs. It was a nice, complete performance that they had in that big win against TCU. I think that the one thing that I'm interested to see tonight, Mitch, is, you know, we've been talking a lot about the College Football Playoff Committee. We're looking at a Cincinnati team who's 7-3, you know, still in the hunt for the Big 12 title game. Is there any way that BYU can, you know, have a massive win where it's just like they blow this team out of the water that changes anything? Or do you think that this game is just, you win and you move on, and that's all the committee's going to see.
I think just winning puts BYU in a spot where it gives them a chance to potentially move up, but they got to have a little bit of chaos in front of them. I think what would definitely happen if BYU blows Cincinnati out, I think it holds off any notion of USC leapfrogging BYU, potentially, if that happens. And again, we'll see what happens there with USC and Oregon. We saw early on it was, 7-0. USC scored first up in Autzen Stadium. Long ways to go in that football game. And now it's tied up at 7, 6:26 to go in the first quarter. So we'll see how that goes. But I think if you blow out Cincy on the road, who last week, remember, Cincinnati was ranked in the college football playoff rankings at number 25. Then they lost to Arizona, who's one of the hottest teams in the Big 12 right now. That would be an impressive win for the Cougars, and I think would hold off the Trojans if they, upset Oregon and try to make a case to leapfrog teams like Miami and BYU in these playoff rankings. I think what's always fascinating at this time of the year when you've got a team like BYU in the race to try to get to the college football playoff is the national talking heads. Now we know Provo Dave Portnoy, he's fully on board with BYU. He's going to bat for BYU. He's wearing a Bear Bachmeier jersey at Big Noon Kickoff today to support the Cougs. But what do other national media members think of this BYU team? And Big Noon Kickoff's Brady Quinn, we had the chance to catch up with him yesterday, and I asked him his thoughts on BYU's ranking in the CFP.
I think they're about where they should be. I don't know that they have a really great quality win. Outside of the Big Ten SEC, it feels like a lot of other, conferences are trying to earn the equity with the, college football playoff committee, and it always helps when you've got, more teams that have winning records and, or at least ranked too. And I think you look at how many teams are ranked in the SEC, they get the benefit of the doubt. So this to me would be another big win for them if they could pull one off here on the road at night versus a good team with a winning record in the Big 12. But again, the Big 12's been crazy. I mean, we've all watched the past couple of years. Last 5 years, they've had 5 different conference champions. So it looks like it might be heading in that direction this year too. So they got the work cut out for them.
Kyle, what's your thoughts on the former Notre Dame and Cleveland Brown quarterbacks' takes there on BYU's ranking in the CFP?
Well, I mean, he's happy that Notre Dame is ahead of them. That's one thing that's for certain. Oh, my gosh.
He's probably happy with his start today for Notre Dame, 28
Yeah, no,
zip.
he definitely is, as they're pounding Syracuse. But, yeah, I mean, I disagree with his take that BYU's ranked where they should be right now. I just think that BYU should be a couple spots higher, at least one spot higher, if not two. But they're just not getting the respect that they deserve nationally. And, I mean, Brady Quinn, they've been at Big Noon Kickoff for BYU multiple times this season, and they know a lot about this program, having talked with Kalani and some of these players, and they have a nice feel for them, probably more so than some other outlets nationally. But it's just, at the end of the day, Mitch, that's a little comment about BYU, but when the rubber meets the road, when it comes to the actual rankings that come out and what the impact is, it's like none of these talking heads are going to go to bat for BYU other than Dave Portnoy. I mean, nobody's on ESPN on Tuesday nights where they're rocking a signed Bachmeier jersey. I just don't believe it.
Oh, what world do we live in that the Barstool Sports El Presidente is the only one that goes to bat for BYU? I love it. Brady Quinn also, I asked him his thoughts on the Big 12 getting 2 teams in the college football playoff. This is what he had to say.
I think so. I think if you're looking at the top 2 teams as it currently stands with Texas Tech and BYU, they would be in my opinion. It'll be interesting to see how Utah is viewed, especially considering, BYU owns the head-to-head if it ever comes between those two. And obviously the committee thinks a lot of what Utah has looked like, since their loss to Texas Tech and some of the others they had. So, it looks like the committee's looking upon the Big 12 somewhat favorably with 5 teams ranked this week. But there's still a lot of games left to be played.
There's no debate, Brady. I mean, it's between BYU and Utah. It's like there's no debate. BYU's got 1 fewer loss, and they've got the head-to-head. And even if BYU loses a game, between now and the end of the season, whatever it is, they got the edge over Utah head-to-head. 2 losses between the two. I often think that what's underrated here when it comes to BYU and Utah, if BYU loses, I think that also hurts Utah's resume a little bit too, because then the strength of the Big 12 at the top gets impacted, and I think that hurts Utah's metrics potentially. Now, Utah is hammering teams, beating folks by about 35 points per game, and it'd be great if BYU could put together another performance as they did last week again tonight on the road. That would be excellent for the Cougars, but it's no debate. BYU has got the edge on Utah. They won the head-to-head.
I think it's fascinating that he thinks that they're going to have two teams in or like are worthy of that, because it's like, as it currently stands, Brady, BYU is on the outside looking in. They're outside of the bracket. Like, it's fascinating to me because his two comments go against everything that has been put out by the playoff committee. So, like, I want to buy it. I want to believe what he's saying. But at the end of the day, like, when you look at the bracket currently, it's like BYU is the first team out and Utah is the second team out. So that's what they think. As much as they think of Utah and the resume that they have, they look at the fact that they lost to BYU and they lost to Texas Tech. So they can't put them ahead of either of those teams, even though the committee loves Utah. They just do.
Let me ask you this.
They would love to rank Utah ahead of BYU. They just can't.
I think you're right that there's kind of that feeling that they do want to do that. Now, let me ask you this, though, Kyle. Do you think, hypothetically, let's say BYU wins out and does what all the texters 57500 are telling us, just win and you're in when it comes to campaigning.
We're talking regular season and the title game? Or not the title game?
Let me finish. The two regular season games and you win the Big 12 title.
Okay.
They beat Texas Tech. Does BYU and Texas Tech get in that spot? Do they give two berths to the Big 12?
Yeah, because Texas Tech is going to beat West Virginia next week, and so they.
Texas Tech will be in the Big 12 championship game in this scenario.
Right?
But do they get a berth if they lose to BYU and Arlington? I think
yes.
The Big 12 is destined for only one bid.
I think in the scenario where BYU beats Texas Tech, then they do, because I just don't believe, because Texas Tech at that point is going to be either fifth or higher, depending on how the other leagues play out. Because I just don't see them falling.
It comes down to Texas Tech and Bama.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't feel good about that.
Yeah, it's to be determined. Who knows? Maybe the Iron Bowl looks different next week. Probably not, because Auburn's terrible. But there's a lot of football still left to be played.
Yeah.
But in the hypothetical situation, I have a hard time seeing them dropping a Texas Tech team from like 4th to 11th or 4th to 12th or 5th to 11th or 12th or further back. That would be tough, man. It would be tough to fall, but they did drop Alabama this last week.
Well, and that's the thing. They dropped Bama 6 spots. They dropped Texas 7 spots. Alabama going 6 spots. 6 spots for Texas Tech would be what? 11. I don't think it's out of the question that could happen to Texas Tech, and I think that's where I'm so kind of frustrated. It goes back to the center of the question today of should BYU and the Big 12 campaign for their teams, because it feels like this league is destined for one bid when really it should be a league that if BYU wins the regular season at 11-1, they're in. If Texas Tech goes 11-1 in the regular season, they should be in, no matter what happens in Arlington. But it kind of has this feeling of, because of the push of all these SEC teams, it kind of feels like whoever wins in Arlington is the only one that's guaranteed a spot in the playoff. But as you said, Kyle, a lot of football left to be played, and a place that you can watch some of that football and some TVs there is Emi Sushi and Ramen in Provo, 366 North University Avenue. Keep in mind, too, if you're not the biggest fan of sushi or ramen, they've got great Chinese and Japanese options. There's great food at Emi Sushi and Ramen, and it's really close to campus, too. So students, if you want to get a place that's got affordable, quick, easy and high-quality food that's catered with specialty chefs like Oscar, the sushi chef, they'll take care of you at Emi Sushi and Ramen.
Yeah, and they've got a number of specials. You can tell them that KSL's Cougar Sports Saturday sent you, and you get 15% off your meal there. But they've also got a nice $10.99 lunch special every day from 11 to 3:30. And then on Monday, they have family night. Wednesday and Thursday, take your significant other out on a date to Emi Sushi and Ramen, and they have a date night special for you as well.
We went there, and we had a great time, and you got the Kung Pao chicken, which was really good, the BYU roll. One of the next times I get there, I want to go and get some more, like the California roll looks really good. I mean, everything is top-notch, but the ramen, too, the noodles are homemade in-house to order. It's just excellent. well-prepared food, and you can taste the difference with those fresh ingredients, the authentic flavors, and really true Japanese skills at Imi Sushi and Ramen in Provo. So check them out today and tell them that KSL Cougar Sports Saturday sent you, and you'll get 15% off.